So we're going to talk through this Pentominous by John Bulten called In Tux, and in this case that title is just coming from the top words, but all the clues in this puzzle include words, and I'm going to see we've got a lot of I's that are trapped, so those are good places to start. These have to join together and form quick edges. This I and in can actually go left or down. Those all look okay, and it would divide into, it looks like 25 cells if it went down, so that's still fine. Thing to know about this eye on the edge, it is vertical, but it also is constrained. Like it can't come all the way to this bottom edge because then you leave a one gap, but also a 5 tall column doesn't have to have another eye right near it. So let's keep that in mind as we go through the grid, that we often have cases where we're gonna have to leave a little bit of a gap on either side for this to not have just another eye over here. We've got to have something like an L shape or, like V's or N's or something else reaching out here. Typically, you're gonna have an L cornering and then some other shape near that eye, just from experience working with that pattern a lot. L's are a good letter because we've got even doubles of them, both an ill and a willy-nilly. And so L's are 2 plus 4 in the opposite direction. This is the 2 directions, so 4 is going to come up here, down here. We don't know which yet. This is 2 in the across. The 4 has to be vertical. And again, having worked around I's and L's a lot, we don't want to leave space between them because look at this gap. This gap is 4 cells long, but this is exactly another L, either to the left or to the right, or another I coming up. And so those gaps would cause issues. So this does need to be an L near an I. This has come up. I think we've had Roman numeral themes in our puzzles before. So like the Roman numeral themes also have this IL synergy as we're seeing in this puzzle from John. These two L's have to work, but they can't come up to this I, so they only have the left option to work. So we can mark that in straight away. We can do more around this N. This N has to come up and take this cell, and it's actually more than that. This is a good place to use color. I don't have a way to mark diagonal cells, but N's often come where we know a 2 by 4 shape for them and a diagonal cell is required. So this is an N, this is an N, this is an N. Across all of those, this is the only other fixed cell, but we know these 3 cells are actually part of the shape because there's not enough ways to get to the right column for this N. We have to use something in this column, and it's got to be one row above this, however the rest fills in. That now limits this y very quickly. The y is going to have to come down and left right for its remaining pieces. One more cell to take, we don't know which one, but it actually now means this n comes up and uses these. I'll just color it in again for completion. Notice with this top n, we leave behind this L shape right near an L shape. That looks very bad, so we'll complete the n by coloring this way. That puts in this V coming up, it puts in this set coming up, and again this isn't an L, so this is forced very quickly to be an I. That means the V has to go to the right, so this is now how that turns. This I is only completed by coming to the bottom row, which means the Y comes left one more cell. Got these cells coming up here from just above the N, and my guess is that's now going to interface with this X clue, so the X clue can't turn to left here, so it really has this cell as its center or this cell as its center. At least at the start of the puzzle, this was a valid shape, but we now have marked off that those two cells down below join together, so that bottom shape doesn't work. The shape that goes to the right is the only X that fits in the grid. That's now putting a lot of stress on the NTU up here. So first we can see like these two cells work together. They're not part of the N, they're not part of the T, they have to be part of this U. Mark that in. This N has to come and take this cell. This T has to come down and take this cell. In doing that, though, you'll see it's not able to take this cell as well. So this is the 3 long stretch, and this coming to the left is the only T that works there. That completes this as an N shape. It completes this as an I shape. These two cells coming out means this I is forced down, and so that now is finally putting some big limits on this W. The W used to have this option, and that's now gone. So this W is now forced to somehow sit within this 3 by 3 box. It's not able to sit in this 3 by 3 box because this corner would need that corner as well to work. So if this is 3 by 3 box, it's taking that center cells, that W, it's taking this edge, and now it's taking one of these two corners. The one that's going to the top leaves behind this empty cell. That's no good. So the one I like to see is this one. So this is a forced W at this stage of the grid. We'll open this back up because it shouldn't be marked in. We'll open this back up. If this L completes with these cells, we have 8 cells remaining. That's no good. So this L completes this way. We now have those 8 plus 3 more. This is 11 cells. So we got to cut in 1 to get a multiple of 5. These 10, this cell can't join to this pentomino because there's not enough more cells to take. So this always joins to these 3, and that means it's got a corner and form an N with a P. Those both look okay. And now to finish out this left side, I think the thing I want to look back at is something I was mentioning earlier, is this I is very cramped because over in this column we don't want another I. So what happens if I come all the way to 2 off this edge and only leave a 1 gap? We get a Y there, but we get another I vertical. That's no good. So notice I have to leave a 2 gap down below. It's going to be the same thinking up above. If I leave a 1 gap, I force this quick W, but then I get a straight long vertical I. That's no good. So this cell here is no good. This cell here is no good. We're left behind with an I that leaves 2 above and 2 below as something was forced. Got 7 cells. We need 3 more to get a multiple of 5. This coming down now has to be an L, not an I. Leaves behind a Y. These 3 coming up, if I don't take this edge, is going to put another L into the grid. That's no good, so this does have to take this edge, but that now forces a W shape with a Y shape. So we've got the left side resolved. Let's come through this open channel. This is not part of a P, so this will be a Z. This P coming up is going to force this shape. That completes this I. These 4 coming across, I or L, still some options there. This bottom edge is probably what we can look at. I see an I and an L touching this, so not joining to the Y is a problem because we'd have another I or another L. So instead it does join to that Y and has to be this shape then. Next thing drawing my attention is really just this F, and this is a callback to Jinhu's pairs puzzle from Thursday. This F can't be the center of an F, and it can't be the edge of the F. This is the corner of an F. There are only 2 Fs right now that can be drawn. It's a more limited shape than you'd expect, at least at this moment. This looks okay. The one that looks bad is this one because it isolates this cell. So we can mark the F shape in for sure. That helps a bit, and that is forcing this N shape to come like so. It means this L and this N, but that's now not helping at all because this is a very open straight edge up top. There's not more information to do with the up clues. So I think the end of vilify and pun is going to be the key steps here. And this is likely the part of the puzzle that makes it Saturday difficulty. So let's get a little bit of a visual assist by using some common colors. And I'll take green for the N. First constraint that's sort of visually evident is tied to that Y because of the Y down below. So Y can't be vertically tall. This is a wide Y, but it has this option. It also has these options here, here, and here. So 4 choices. None of them have 4 cells in common because this and this are fully separate. But notice something. This is a very subtle deduction, but I'm pulling it out of the bag of tricks because this is a John Bulten puzzle. So it's sometimes helpful to be creative. These 2 cells are something I would mark on my own in a grid and likely in pen, or what I can do here. Let's go to something that I'm not going to erase. Let's go to line and blue, and let's just, okay, we've drawn that connection. Why is that so? So I've drawn in one of the Y's. That Y will always take those 2 cells. If it's not that bottom Y, it's this Y, and those Y also still use those 2 cells. But this is a case where knowing these 2 cells come together will help us, I think, with, it could help us with future deductions, because it's at least saying we've got to take 2 at a time, not 1 at a time. These aren't free agent cells. These come as a pair, and knowing they come as a pair is sometimes helpful in the hardest pentominos. Still just talking out loud, like other things we can look at, or at least like this P, like right now, one thing to note, this is a valid 2x3 bounding box, but it forces this corner to be open. And that's compatible with that Y shape, so that's still looking okay now. We can't use this 2x3 shape because we leave behind 2 cells. This shape can work as long as we leave open this corner, so these cells have a way to get out. And we even have some shapes down here. So there's just a lot around that P still. And so this may be where you wouldn't think that the center of pun, the U, is a critical feature, but it's actually the most constrained letter I still see left to at least look at. So let's look at it. And it's not that constrained. It has 6 options for it. And I've now made enough of these videos and been critiqued where I sometimes miss one of the shapes. I at least think hard about this. So this U, because of its positions to the left or right, this is not the 2nd or 4th cell of a U. This is not the corner of a U. This will be the 1st, 3rd, or 5th cell of a U. And so there is some form where it only comes up, so it doesn't take this edge, and that's going to be this all left option, all right option. While I'm drawing those in, let me just show you that these don't work. This P can come down and over, but we leave behind a cell. And this U option to the right can seem like it's working, but this N now has to be 4 tall, and that 4th cell is going to be off the edge of the grid if it's over here or anything else. And obviously there are lots of ways you can try to place it, but critically there's still not a 4th row. You have 3 rows to fit a 4 tall piece. not going to work. So first thing to actually sort of say about this, I think, is just that the U of the 4 options now remain like this. The U has to take this cell. The options that still are there, this U can still be on an extreme, and in those extremes, I don't mean to have that on, there we are. It can be this all to the left, it can be this all to the right. This one all to the left makes an okay P shape up top, but it doesn't allow this Y to be fit in, so this doesn't work. This one looks like it does work. Here's a case, notice this N comes up. It might have looked earlier like it came over left like so, but these two cells are absolutely linked, so we actually can pretty quickly say this N deflects to the right. So that's one of the reasons I like that notation. But again, that option is okay, the option left is bad, so we have to keep this in mind. This is still valid. We've got to look at the last options, which are where this U is the center of the U and it's straddling, and this straddle is going to be towards the left. That P, this is kind of like where it was forcing the P down, it's leaving behind the cell, so it's a quick elimination. And straddling and going to the right, in this case, right now we actually know across those options, we only have 2 left. We've got this option and this option left, so we can actually mark these 3 cells in with some confidence. This straddle option again requires the N to go to the right. It has to be 4 wide, but it only has 3 cells to be wide, and so this one doesn't work. And we can complete this space like so. We will hope that that progress gives us a lot more. As a starting point, at least gives us these cells for that N. But that's still not doing a ton to eliminate. Like every Y used to have is still an available Y. This one is still good and coming across this space. Like I think actually this Y is now eliminated because we now are isolating a cell here. And across these Ys, even the Y that comes up and take this cell is going to be somewhat problematic if it's not joining up above, or if there's one more pentomino in the space. So let's think about that a little bit. Let's also think about this P again. So this P just lost some of the options down to the right. So one sense is we may be able to force it if we know that we either have to take this direction or have to take that direction. I'm trying to see which might be more limiting. It looks like in this space we've got some valid options because we have like this L and Y set. So I'm more curious actually about this one. This one forces us to use that 2x3 bounding box I was talking about. It absolutely requires this one. We can't come over like this because we leave behind 2 cells. And we can't come over like this because we can leave behind those same 2 cells. So if we have to use this bounding box, we have to take this corner out from it. And then this Y, as it works, can take these cells coming across, but it can only reach down and take one of these. So I think a critical step at this moment is that these cells join to that P. This cell is never part of the P, so it's part of a 4 long stretch that's joined. This can be an I or an L. These 3 always come together, could take this or not. What's next? This P can't not use this box to the left. The 3x3 shapes that are still available to it include this, might look like these, but this, if this cell is not used, there's an issue here. We have to start a 2x2 around this, and so we'd almost have to reach into the space. So shading the cell forces us to shade this cell. So this is the core of the P, and we need to take one more around it. This edge is no good because it would leave behind, if we took this, it would leave behind something that's not a Y shape touching that Y. This edge is no good because it leaves behind 2 cells. So I now have a either or option starting out here. Along that either or option, this Y is still fine. The other option is actually these forming part of the cell in that shape. So another place I can come back with my colorful lines is knowing these 4 all come together. Doesn't help me necessarily with this Y clue because the Y uses these 4 or it's using these. But I think now we can look at a cell like this and make some quicker headway. And that's for a few regions. This is not part of that Y. And these 2 cells can't join to these 4 below. So if these 2 cells are just in white, notice they're forming a P shape touching a P shape. So this cell has to be part of a clued pentomino. And it must be either that U or that P. Let's look at those options. The U is going to be the most limiting because it forces the whole shape if it takes that. It actually puts the P in and leaves behind 12 cells at the top. That's never going to work. So this is the P coming down. And again, because I've already marked these 2 cells as joined, this actually the P is also immediately forced because of my notation. So this has to be this P. Does that give us any more? This cell can be part of the Y, but that means the U starts from here, and so the U is then in this box, and so it's going to be not taking this cell, that's bad, not taking this cell. So right now the U is crunched in such a way it must come down one cell, and actually because it's not 3 wide, it has to come down both cells. That now does mean it takes these together. So those two go together, it puts in this Y, puts in this P, puts in this I. The N to work out has to take this lone cell, which gives us a Y over here. It gives us these 4 cells coming together. And we're left with 15 cells and still like a little bit of a tough process here. The way I work through these is to try to do some counterfactuals, almost like pretend it's a pentomino borders puzzle, and see if I'm forming a bad shape. The P is a shape I want to avoid here, so notice if I don't take this edge, I am forced to take this P shape if that were a borders clue, so I do take this edge. If I don't take this edge, I'm also making a 2x2 square here, and that's going to then join across, make another P shape, so I do take this edge. But I'm now in a case where I don't want to take these edges because I'd then isolate a cell down here. So this is a distinct pentomino. This is going to come over to the right. This one up here doesn't want to take all the way to the cell because that forms a U, so this has to take at least this. That means this has to take at least this. That now completes this shape. We have a V and a Z, or we have an N and an L. That N would touch another N, so where this has to come down, it doesn't go any further. And that BZ finally finishes this puzzle. So this is quite the Saturday workout, at least to show logically. It's helped by some of the things, including this like fairly rare kind of notation, but hopefully got a good sense of how to use cramping and logic at the start. Like these I clues and I clues near edges, L clues near them. There's a lot of IL logic that played out in different parts of the grid. At the end of the day, it was about getting these small chunks of progress and even seeing you might not consider a clue like that U to be as constrained. It has 6 options for it. But if you can quickly in your head sketch that a lot of them cancel, in this case 5 of those 6 actually did cancel, making this placement was a step to really get us into this next stage of the puzzle. And that's sometimes how Pentominous goes, at least the Saturday puzzles. So hopefully you got something from seeing me work through this puzzle. Thanks, John, for the challenge, and we'll see you again soon.